Welcome to another edition of Health Fox. We're here today in front of the New Yorker Hotel, where the New Life Expo is held twice a year, and we'll be here again very soon. One of the featured speakers at the Expo is Victor P. Kulvinskas, a true pioneer in nutrition, enzyme research, and living foods. We have a special treat for you today because Victor has agreed to be on our show, and we're going to take you into one of his workshops where you'll see this dynamic speaker in action. So, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show. And remember to tell your friends to join us every week on Health Fox.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Schuker. Now, there are many reasons for moving towards a vegetarian living food diet, but arguably the most important of these is living enzymes. Now, Dr. Edward Howard describes these enzymes as the workforce of the body, pulling together all the ingredients that we need to build a healthy body. Now, I often hear the statement, we are what we eat, but in reality, we are what we digest. If you were to build a home, you would need to first bring together all the things, all the materials that you needed. Then you'd need a workforce, a strong, vibrant workforce to build that house and make it build it strong. So it is with our bodies. Enzymes act as living catalysts to drive all our metabolic processes. However, catalysts are inert, but enzymes are living, vibrant organisms. Without them, no chemical reactions can occur in the body. We consider two types of enzymes: endogenous, those that we are created within the body, and exogenous, those that are created when they enter the body through our food choices. Although we can manufacture all our enzyme needs, this does put extreme strain on our body. And should an organ stop producing or slow down its production of enzymes, then our bodies can quickly deteriorate. Better to ingest those enzymes in our food and prevent that stress on our body and internal organs. As you will hear this evening, Victor Kulvinskas, he says that enzymes affect our existence. They have been applied in every phase of healing, from arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Without enzymes, we develop problems. Robert Young, PhD, he says in his book, The pH Miracle, the higher the level of enzymes in your food, the faster you will repair and rebuild your body. Now, there are over 80,000 enzyme systems within the body, each performing a specialized function, from hair color to muscular contraction. The raw substances we ingest, like proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, they are all utilized by enzymes. And we're born with a certain amount of enzymes, and when they become exhausted, they can lead to organ failure and death. Now, the biggest drain on these enzymes is the effect of cooked food, because all cooked food is deficient in enzymes. So, whenever you raise your food above 120 degrees, you are destroying all the enzymes in that food. And this is also creating a condition in the body known as leukocytosis, where the body causes an overproduction of the enzyme-rich white blood cells in an attempt to break down and digest those denatured foods. Dr. Howell states that leukocytes contain a greater variety of enzymes than is reported for the pancreas, and it appears probable that white blood cells transport enzymes from place to place within the organism. Now, when this was originally discovered back in 1846, it was termed a normal condition because everybody was affected. But with recent research into living and raw diets, we now know that it is only cooked food that causes this reaction, and that pressure cooked food causes a greater reaction, and the greatest of all is with processed and refined foods. Now, from the time food enters the mouth, it combines with saliva, comes through the gastrointestinal tract, digesting all the time. The big question is, are these enzymes destroyed by the acids in the stomach? Again, Dr. Howell states that when you eat food, acid secretion is minimal for at least 30 minutes. And as the food enters the stomach, it drops into the upper portion we call the cardiac section. And in this upper section, there is little or no acid or enzymes secreted by the body. The enzymes for food digestion have to come from the food themselves. Now, some foods have enzymes inhibitors. The best example of this is nuts and seeds. They have evolved so they could pass through the gastrointestinal tract of an animal, be deposited on the floor, and allow a new growth to occur. Now, we have traditionally neutralized these enzymes by cooking, long cooking, boiling and cooking them to neutralize. But when we do that, we also cause the destruction of all the enzymes. So we prefer to sprout our nuts and seeds prior to consumption. Not only does sprouting inhibit the digestive enzymes, but it also increases the nutritional content of the food. Sprouting is alkalizing, life-generating, revitalizing, high in enzymes, and it is very high in nutrients. So we can see that all enzymes are very important in the body, and it's very important we know how to receive them and the best quality that we can get. We're now going to visit Victor in one of his workshops here in New York City, where he's going to teach us a lot more about enzymes, and we can be able to introduce that into our lives. So we hope you enjoy Victor. I'm Kevin Schuker, and this is HealthVox.
Quality texture once mentioned. They do. Then we sprout grains for 3 days. Whatever grains you like. My wife is the one about 15 years ago basically initiated the grain program in her life. She was having a very difficult time with maintaining weight, was excessive overeater, eating tremendous amount of volume, yet continuing to stay very slim and skinny, actually. And her energy level was not together. So she looked at athletic diets. What do they work with? Well, they work extensively with complex carbohydrates. So we've converted the whole process into raw direction, which we sprout grains. We found that because by having them more mixed, it's less likely to have, even with people who have sensitivity to gluten, less likely to have any kind of response. And then we sprout them for 3 days, a mixture of it, and we sprout half a gallon of it, which lasts us the whole week. And then at the last stage of sprouting, we take 1/2 a gallon of mixture of sesame, sunflower, pumpkin. We soak it overnight. We mix them together in a bowl, add plenty of water so that it mixes very nicely, and then harvest it, put it in the refrigerator, and that keeps for a week, and that's part of our basically cafeteria that we are setting up inside the refrigerator. It does not take up any significant time. Our food preparation, as far as the overall growing, is probably about an hour a week. That's not much, and about another hour for food preparation. Basically, the food preparations are sea vegetables, are basically pâtés. The grain pâté, we basically, and all these recipes and detailed information, basically the kind of lifestyles we encourage that know it works for type of approach as well as for weight gain approach is basically described in this lover's diet. Now, as we incorporated this mixture of sprouted grain and soaked seeds, she found more than easy to maintain her weight. Eventually, I approached the same direction after about 5 years of being pestered, and I kept eating in my own kind of fruitarian-oriented type of direction. But I found I always tended to overeat. With the sprouted grain, eating about 1 cup of sprouted grains with some sea vegetables, and I innovated the pâtés, which are basically so simple. All you do is take, for 1 cup of sprouted grains, soaked seed mixture, you add to it 1 tablespoon of like extra virgin olive oil, and we encourage like Carruthers, which is one of the few that we know it's all raw, and its address is again in the handout sheet. And at the same time, we add a pinch of sea salt and whatever fresh herbs we have available. And generally, we use basil, sage, rosemary. These are 3 that we growing all over our property, and we have plenty of it available. And just run it through a food processor, and you have to make about 4 cups at a time at most food processors. Though if you have a Vitamix, you can actually use the plunger, and you can work with as little as 2 cups of mixture. But whatever is your overall preference. And then once you made it, it keeps for a whole week, again, in a refrigerator. So when we eat, I mean, all I do is go in a refrigerator, have that type of meal, maybe once or twice a day, and then smoothies the rest of the time, which ends up tying up very little one's time. During the times that I have been on the program, with frequent eating, and by frequent eating only when the stomach is empty and I was hungry, eating small meals, no more than 2 cups in size, and doing 3 to 4 times a week. Months as I worked with that program, I was able to gain 1 pound of lean muscle mass a week. Gained 16 pounds during that time. At the same time, I went from basically from weight like leg press, which I was at 200, I was up to 500 pounds. As far as lunges, I started with 60. I was up to 90 pounds. I was the only one that was doing that kind of stuff at the gymnasium. Also, considering age, I was then already 57. So basically, this stuff allows you to have plenty of energy, small meals. You don't have to overeat like most people tend to do with all their salads. I am an ex-bulimic, 10 years of it. For me to say, to have total satisfaction with the food, I have no food thoughts at all. I eat and I go back to whether it's in the fields, doing carpentry work, or doing writing on or doing the internet, or having time with my wife. Whatever it is, basically food is the last thing. It's fueling, it's delicious while I indulge in it, but it's nothing that encourages me overeating, which is a problem with people who are on any kind of diet, vegetarian, raw foodist, kosher, or straight mainstream. And we have about 70% of Americans are overweight. 1/3 of Americans are obese, and about 1/6 are morbidly obese. I spent 2 years working in morbid obesity. We were able to make people lose 2 pounds per day. We worked with people who were 400 to 1,000 pounds in weight in Bahamas and Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And we had great success, as well as also drug addiction. You take people who are drug addicts, they have the reason they crave the drug, which gives them a fix of alkaloid nature. It temporarily reduces radically the acidic condition, because that's what the alkaloids, whether it's cocaine, heroin, or marijuana, or anything or nicotine, whatever you're addicted, and it makes you feel energetically normal or better than normal, alive. Well, we put them, instead of on alkaloids, we put them on alkalinity. First, detox. We radically alkalize their whole immediate environment. What we do is take my clients, put them in a bathtub, 3 pounds of salt, and pickle them away for 24 hours. They never had any cramps, spasms, or migraines, headaches, or anything like that. Those people have gone through all kind of clinics in order to do therapies. They haven't seen anything like the program that I had put together. And then we were marketing also basically an alkaline drink to help people to maintain to remove the cravings for the drugs which are initiated. One is initiated by basically combination of boredom, loneliness, depression. It helps to address all these kind of things, these drugs. But if you get yourself alkalized, then you are never lonely. You are at one with God. God talks to you. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Or quite often it's the goddess, goddess, whatever combination you want. And you find basically joy and sharing and life you might say, even though it's on a fast lane, for me, I mean, I work quite a great deal, but this kind of nutrition basically keeps you pretty well on pace. No sick leave necessary. No days of boredom, and no days of depression. No days of basically insomnia. When I was insomniac, I used to go to bed at 12, 1, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I'd still be tossing and turning. Now, at the click of the minute, I can lay down anywhere and go to sleep for whatever length of time I say to myself to sleep, and I wake up in exactly that time that I've committed myself. The beauty is to get control of your body instead of having an out-of-control body. That's what majority of the people have. And the reason is, it's just like having a great Mercedes or a Rolls Royce and you put in the wrong cheap fuel. Well, that's exactly what's going on with everybody. The machine is not operating on all the multi-levels that are associated with the intellect, with the physical, with also the heart space. Most people are just continuously either depressed, or they have a defensive, or they're in a manic depressive type of a state, having to do, again, wrong fuel. They don't have their energy. Their head is not integrated. Their brain circuitry is not integrated. It has to do with nutrition. As an example, in Schizophrenia Journal, the Moscow Psychiatric Institute did over 35 years of study. They would take manic depressives, schizophrenics, every form of basically mental diseases, and they put them on a fast, 30-day fast with exercise, 2 hours of exercising a day. Then after that, plant-based diet, and they stayed vegetarian, and with a fast every year of 1 week duration. 5 years later, not a single one of them have returned to the psychiatric disorders. Whereas if you go right now to any hospital in the United States, I don't know about the world, the largest wing committed, and which is larger than all the other wings together committed to the sick people, it is due to people who have psychiatric disorders. It is going out of style. And then with all the vaccinations and the poisoning that the children are getting, you are finding basically all kind of mental diseases are spreading like wildfire among our children. They are becoming imbeciles. They're becoming basically sick with all kind of diseases. They start them off with over 20 different vaccinations by the time they hit grade school. That is poisoning of the system. It should never be allowed. And most of the countries in the world, they will not touch these vaccinations. But United States, you know, you heard already, they're preparing for smallpox to every one of you. I mean, you know, that stuff that was stolen out of Moscow, Moscow disease center, the smallpox, basically, it was done by, you know who? United States government. So addicts and all of you buy into that kind of stuff. What do you do for us? Build up your immune system. You don't have to deal with smallpox or anthrax or any other kind of poisoning that will come your way. Or you might pick it up at a restaurant, which means take on a daily basis probiotics, and if you don't have probiotics, Rejuvilac. Drink Rejuvilac, bacteria culture cocktail. Take enzymes. If you don't have enzyme supplementation, then you do a lot of sprouted grains. You do a lot of soaked seeds and nuts. These are, and fermented foods and seed cheeses. These are loaded with enzymes and friendly bacteria. That will keep your immune strong. Then for extra defense, hey, have a clove of garlic occasionally. I didn't even have any of these kind of superfoods, and I was for 6 months in Costa Rica in the tropics, including drinking, foolishly enough, tap water as well as water from streams and stuff like that as we lived in the wild. I was the only one, didn't have anything go wrong on me in terms of the diarrhea and the kind of diseases that often happens, or outrageous, out-of-control flat throat. I took garlic every day, kept it under control. Those who had, during the bubonic plague in 1340, what occurred, 50% of the population of Europe was wiped out, over 25 million people. Having to do, the ones who survived, they had cleanliness and they ate garlic or onions on a regular daily basis. Keep the immune system protected, and the ones who make it the strongest, the immune system is enhanced unbelievably by the consumption of enzymes. Enzymes, Leskovar showed it, a 1,300% increase in natural killer cells, 700% in macrophages. These are the fighting elements within the system. These are the things that enable you to tolerate the intolerable environment, or the things that you find in the food, or some of the chemicals, and even when you get organic. And I tried practically everything there is organic in the purchase, and it cost me quite a pretty buck. I don't even think all the wonderful donation that you spend on this is going to cover the cost of the food. But basically, it's good to shop organic. Reduce the stress on your immune system, but even organic as being tested. Because they're in the neighborhood of inorganic farming, they get some of that kind of spray. So basically, as far as I'm giving you basically a little bit orientation as far as our own personal orientation, the structure of this 2-hour session will be, I'll continue on talking a little bit about basically putting one's nutritional programs together, and also then how to prepare this food, and then also I'll get into having the food served and question and answers, and those who would like to make purchases of books, or else you can go to www.youthing101.com and actually end up purchasing it on the web. And also get a quite education on the value of enzymes, probiotics, and also superfoods, as well as other resources that are available there. So in terms of how many of you are, let's say, 80% or more raw foodists here? Wow, there's quite a significant number. How many of you are not vegetarian yet? Very good. I'm glad to have you folks. And also, how many of you are basically considered what would be called just vegetarian, which includes also dairy and other kind of products like that? And, you know, if you are including dairy products, try to include it and make the transition to some of these cheese products made and others from seeds, as well as the milks made from seeds. But at the same time, you know, if you continue use raw goat's milk products and raw type of cheeses, and if you use yogurts, well, try making your own from like I said, from seeds and nuts. But if you purchase, make sure they have, of course, living bacteria in it. So basically, Popcorn Report said in this century, if you were not, which is, many of you probably know who the Popcorn Report, they're basically prophecy for the business community, IBM, Nesco, basically all the top corporations basically use them for getting trends, not basically fads or anything like that, but where is America heading? Where is the world actually heading? And one of the things they said, if you're not a vegetarian, you'll wish you were. And we see that, good reasons for it. I mean, the tremendous conditions of the animal market in terms of not only experimentations, but also a question of hygiene, and also basically infested with all kind of pathogenic microbes and things like that, as well as the research. Even if it was organic, the best possible meat, as soon as you cook it, you already move yourself into basically disorganized proteins that your own digestive enzyme system can't recognize. It can't digest it successfully, majority of it, and this stuff is actually carcinogenic. I mean, the research is very much there. I have the most in-depth documentation and studies available in my book, Survival, and basically it's a classic book. 25 years ago it was written, but on the subject of cancer, no one could beat it. Also on women's disorders, basically showing, you find like in Survival, if you haven't read Survival, it's basically, even young people nowadays, I mean on the internet, they're buying it, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they're saying it is like the most mind-changing thing that they ever read, yet it's, when you think about it, it's written by a grandfather. When you think about it, it was written about 30 years ago, yet it was based on eternal truths that will not change. And also I documented everything from medical, from scientific literature, as well as from spiritual books. It's one of the classic examples on spirituality. It's one of the classic examples of rejuvenation, and classic examples of some pretty radical, basically, experiences of transformation. And basically, like I said, it's a must type of a book. It was considered the raw foodist Bible, but it's actually even much more potent. So basically, a desirable direction for yourself is to, first of all, to get a hang of your hydration, of your sleep mode, of your digestion, of your elimination. The way you do that, basically, hydration is consume water. That's probably in terms of ounces. If you are 100 if you are 100 pounds, then 50 ounces, or basically about a quart and a half of water per day. The best thing to do is when you get up in the morning, drink as much as you feel you desire. Have a glass of water by your bedside. If you wake up and you feel little tanks of thirsty, drink your water. And also during the day, small quantities of water, sipping it from your bottle all day long. Don't drink lots of water. Don't drink ice water. Ice water is basically to increase the enzyme activity by going from around 95, moving it into 103, 104. Basically, it increases radically by as much as 200% your enzyme activity potential. And enzymes are the only things that cure you. They do work inside of your body. They assemble your body. Enzymes are basically your your blue-collar worker. I call them green-collar workers because that's my color. Blue is too intellectual type of a color. So anyways, the use of improved elimination and probiotics, bacteria cultures, rejuvenate, fermented type of foods, they create tremendous amount of increase in volume of friendly bacteria in your system. You have, in a healthy GI tract, you have about 20 to 50 times more bacteria than you do cells inside of your body. Isn't that amazing? I mean, more than you have cells in your body.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of HealthBox. We're here today in front of the New Yorker Hotel. That bus bothered you? All right. One of the featured speakers in the expo is Victor P. Kulvinskas, a true pioneer in enzyme research, nutrition, and living foods. So, okay, I got to take that again. We're still rolling, right?